My name is Kate Moreau, and I am the Deputy Director of Family Support for Best Buddies here in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And we're so glad that you're here with us today for our first ever Caregiver Compass locally. For those of you who may already be involved with Best Buddies but aren't as familiar with Uni's Buddies, we are the family support mentorship program within Best Buddies. While Best Buddies focuses on friendships, jobs, leadership development, and inclusive living for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, Uni's Buddies is specifically designed for the parents and caregivers of those individuals. So we thoughtfully match parents or caregivers whose child has recently received a diagnosis of an intellectual or developmental disability with trained volunteer mentors who are other parents who understand and are further along in their journey. So, whether it's navigating a new diagnosis, school transitions, future planning, or just needing someone who truly gets it, our mission is to make sure that no parent feels like they're doing this alone through resources, connection, and support. So, webinars like today are one more way that we extend this support to you all. So, today we're diving into a topic that is both meaningful and practical. So, I will talk a little bit more about the Federation for Children with Special Needs, as well as Pat and Karen, who are joining us today. But before I do, a few quick housekeeping notes. So we will be saving time for questions at the end. So please feel free to drop in any of your questions into the chat as we go, and we will get to them at the end. We will also be recording this session so that you can refer back to it later, and we will send out the YouTube link once it's uploaded and make sure that no personal identifying information is included in that. Also, you'll see a short survey at the end of the webinar. Your feedback really helps us shape future sessions and make sure that we're covering all the topics that matter most to you. So if you please can take a few moments, we would greatly appreciate hearing from you. So now, without further ado, I'm so grateful to have Pat Cameron with us today. Pat is the Director of Family of Youth Engagement at the Federation for Children with Special Needs in Massachusetts, which is the state's parent training and information center. In partnership with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's Division of Children and Youth with Special Health Needs, Pat oversees parent to parent, or P2P, matching families with similar life experiences. She also directs the Family to Family Health Information Center, also known as F2F, that provides information and individual assistance to families with children with complex medical needs and other disabilities navigating the healthcare system. So with more than 40 years of experience in early childhood education, her focus has been on early childhood special education and young children's social emotional development. Also from the Federation, we're joined by Karen Lopez. Karen, born and raised in Colombia, she earned a degree in biomedical engineering. Growing up alongside a close family member with special needs gave her a deep appreciation for the critical role of early intervention in supporting children with diverse needs. Now, as the parent of a son with special needs and a professional at the Federation for Children with Special Needs, she is committed to applying her knowledge and experience to make meaningful difference for families navigating the early childhood special education system. Overall, the Federation for Children with Special Needs is a mission-driven organization located in Charlestown, Massachusetts, whose goal is to empower families, engage diverse communities, and eliminate barriers to improve life outcomes for all children and young adults, especially those with disabilities. We are proud to partner with them, and I'm thrilled for you all to learn more about their helpful resources. So without further ado, Pat and Karen, thank you for being here, and we're excited to learn more from you today. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. It's our pleasure to be here as well and to, really nurture and facilitate our partnership. So as Kate said, we're here to really share with you some helpful tips when we talk about caregiver compassion. And now we're in the summer months and the possibility of transitioning into more relaxed and accessing more accessible summer activities. So we'll get started. So when we think about self-care or caregiver compassion, We want to impress upon you the fact that it's not a selfish activity. It's not something that you should feel guilty about. It's something you should welcome. And when we think about, integrating activities for our children into the normal everyday activities at home or at school, at work, wherever you are, think about that same approach when you think about self-care. It's being intentional about taking 5 minutes, 15 minutes, even 30 seconds to do some deep breathing, to pause and reflect, to be able to build into your everyday activities a moment of refreshment, a moment of renewal. Um, because as they say when you get on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. And it's true because you can't give from an empty cup. And so you want to be very intentional and practical about always filling your cup. And so today we'll just walk through a couple of activities that you can just embrace and try to embed into your everyday activities. So today we'll really talk about, recognizing about how important our own needs are, deepening our understanding of self-care. And as I said before, it's really being intentional about caring for yourself. We'll explore some mini action steps, and these are quick, easy exercises. And then think about how you might develop new self-care habits. We'll experience some simple meditations together, and then we'll explore accessible summer activities. And the nice tie about this is that there's so much research about spending time in nature is a wonderful way to care for you and your family. And we also want to impress upon you, self-care is not something you have to do alone. These are activities that you can build into your whole family and those that support you. So let's take a moment just to center ourselves. And if you are seated in a nice comfy chair, you may want to think about putting both feet on the floor, to be able to sort of relax your shoulders, to just even close your eyes for a moment or gaze into the picture that's on your screen right now. Think about a place that brings you peace, that brings you joy, that gives you that moment to just breathe. And so I invite you to take a deep breath in and out. Breathe in and breathe out. And the simple action of intentional breaths can reduce your blood pressure, can regulate your heartbeat, and can just bring you a moment where you just feel a little calmer or a little bit more in control and ready to tackle what comes next. We all know how busy our lives are as caregivers. And if you're part of that sandwich generation where you're caring for children and you're caring for your aging parents, it can add on so much more. And so when you think about your role as a parent, as a caregiver, as a grandparent, what are all those different roles that you play? And how can you bring some of these strategies into all those roles that you play? And again, it's being very intentional about pausing, reflecting, reconnecting, and then continuing on. You may say, I don't have time for this, but I want you to pause and think about the why. You are a VIP to someone. You are a very important person to others who are close to you. If you are the sole caregiver to a child, an aging parent, a sick spouse, Whoever depends on you really relies on you to be at your best. And if not, if you don't take care of yourself, then who will? And if you don't do it now, when? And so I invite you to sort of include this as an invitation as to think about ideas. And we'll talk about habits and, incorporating all of this into your everyday life. But I challenge you to think about that question. If not you, who? And if not now, when? And you're the only person who can answer those questions. But I think hopefully today, with some of the suggestions that we'll offer and some of the approaches that you can take, you will join me in this effort of self-care. So the intentional part about this is finding that time. And it can be a moment where you just take that deep breath, where you stand still, sit still, however you may move around, and just take a deep breath. It offers you that moment of recharging. It offers you that moment of self-care. And you may do this, and you just didn't know how beneficial it was to take that deep breath. And so when you think about self-care and you think about, well, I do take, a moment each evening, or when I first wake up in the morning before the kids are awake, or I set the alarm to wake up earlier before the kids are awake to have that time. Be thinking about how you can recharge and how you can use that time for compassion care. So what might it look like when you think about self-care? And again, these can be moments in everyday activities. When you get up and you take a shower in the morning and you wrap that warm towel around your wet hair, be thinking about giving yourself that warm embrace. When your body is feeling warm, it's feeling refreshed, it's feeling clean, and just emphasizing that moment in the morning, or perhaps you're a shower in the evening, to think about that moment where you're just taking care of you. Be thinking about, how do my nails look? How am I, if I got that great new polish on, um, you know, something that makes you feel special. Listening to music, listening to sounds of nature, listening to meditative apps that you can download, listening to a story, audio story. Be thinking about how you can just seize those 10 minutes for yourself. Practice yoga. Have the family practice yoga. Again, self-care is not something you have to do alone. You can be instilling some of these exercises with your family members as well, and building that 10 minutes into a routine. When you think about putting children to bed and how important those bedtime routines are, do deep breathing with them as well. We'll have some exercises that you can practice with your children, and be able to participate in just some self-regulation behaviors. Think about, is there a moment in my day where I can sit and just meditate, where I can put myself on the floor, sit in a comfy chair, read a book, or just close my eyes? Get together with friends, cook healthy meals together, and then take them home and share them with each family. But those moments of connection can be so vital and so refreshing and so renewing. Again, grabbing that 10 minutes to read a chapter in a book, read a poem, read to one another can be very relaxing. And then, of course, healthy foods. We can sort of spoil ourselves by ingesting something that's healthy to put in our bodies, or we can do something frivolous and spoiling to bring what brings you joy. So think about what are the foods that bring you joy and spoil yourself. So there's a lot of science behind the whole art of self-care. And when we think of these 7 pillars of self-care, we think about what's the knowledge behind it? What is the history and the health literacy tell us? There's a lot of research out there about the benefits of self-care. And I invite you to explore some of that. When you think about you don't have to justify this, but maybe you have to justify it to yourself about the benefits of self-care. There's a lot of research out there which really supports the importance of taking care of yourself. And again, I bring you back to the flight attendant who tells you to put your own oxygen mask on first before assisting others. There's science behind that. The second pillar is mental well-being, or that self-awareness and that agency within yourself to be taking care of oneself. There's a lot of emotional support that comes with taking care of yourself. You are that VIP. You're a very important person, not only to your community and to your family and to your village, but to yourself. And it's really recognizing the self-worth and the self-awareness and the purpose behind caring for yourself. There's also, in that third pillar, a lot of research which tells you about the benefits of physical activity and the benefits that have on you personally about being physically active. And physically active can be anything from taking a walk or exercising or practicing yoga or taking those thoughtful moments where you are doing chair yoga, where you are doing something that cares for you. We'll talk a little bit later about the connection between nature and getting out into nature, and particularly exploring some of the resources that we have at the end. There's also in that fourth pillar, the benefits of healthy eating. And so be thinking about not just how you're feeding yourself, but how you're also feeding your family. There's a lot of energy derived from fresh fruits and vegetables, from nutritious smoothies, from just being aware of what we're putting in our bodies and the effect that it has on not our just physical health, but our emotional health as well. The effects of caffeine versus caffeine-free. So very aware of avoiding risks, smoking, narcotics, medications, and so forth. And so be thinking of, what are my risky behaviors and what do I want to try and develop healthier habits around? And then there's actually some benefit to good hygiene. And so, we think about our daily shower or, or the washing our hands frequently during the day and so forth. All of that is good hygiene, but it's also self-care activities. And so be thinking about what you're already doing in the course of a day and just putting a little new lens on it as part of my self-care regime. And, and bathing and eating and so forth. All of these are activities of self-care, but they're what we're doing already. And so you can think about, oh, well, I'm already doing that. And so when you think about how we frame it, think about it in the context of your daily activities. And then the last pillar is to sort of really think about, all right, how intentional am I about the use of products and services? And, be thinking about what's the rationale behind the medications you may take or the indulgences you may provide, and thinking about the benefits of seeking out some support services and being able to do some self-improvement with the help of others. And so we'll talk about the benefits of all of that as well. So in addition to the pillars, we have these different components of self-care, and we think about that, about everything we have within our bodies. And we think about what the mental or emotional benefits are. And when we think about mental, we want to look at what is it about mental self-care? It's cultivating that healthy mindset through mindfulness and curiosity, to being mindful about our actions and being curious about the actions of ourselves and others, to be thinking about what's that emotional component, about taking care of your heart and your health, and really looking at what are those healthy coping strategies that you can use. Again, I reflect back on that picture we showed earlier about all the Post-it notes of all your different roles and the hats you may wear. And how do you balance that? How do you really approach some healthy coping strategies to get you through a day, to get you through an hour, to get you through an appointment? So, what are the physical components of self-care? And that's really taking care of your body, whether it's how you exercise, how you take food in and plan for your nutrition. And are you getting the proper sleep? We all need to be thinking about, you know, that what was it when we were all new parents? You sleep when your baby sleeps. And so be thinking about how are you really renewing yourself with a good night's sleep. Or maybe you have to take those naps because your child with complex medical needs ongoing monitoring during the night, or apnea machines and so forth. So be thinking about how you can be intentional about implementing some of these components of self-care. So we also have the environmental factors in thinking about the places and spaces around you and how can you make them more conducive to self-care. And be thinking about, are you bathing with candle lights? Are you dining with candlelight? So be thinking about how you can manipulate your environment to be more conducive to self-care. And then you have the spiritual aspects of self-care, which really makes instituting practices that give you a sense of meaning to your life. We look at our families every day and we glean the meaning and reward from our families as we go through day to day. But sometimes there's that aspect of, is there something bigger? Is there something more? And so I invite you to explore that spiritual side of, is there a connection to a greater universe? Is there a connection to me and where I fall within the universe? And then think about the recreational components of self-care. Do you make time for hobbies? Do you knit or crochet? Do you have fun experiences? Do you want to learn new experiences to bring fun and joy and recreation into your life? And again, you can do this with your families. These aren't something you have to do alone. And then the social component of self-care. It's not something you can do you have to do in isolation. You can join a yoga group. You can go online and be part of a chair yoga group so that you create that community for yourself and for others. So we've talked about some of the strategies, but there's science behind the benefits of self-care. It helps you reduce and manage your stress. It actually increases your productivity if you take those moments of refreshment and moments of reprieve to get you geared up for what's to come next. Self-care can also be fun. I love the picture at the top, if you're able to see that, of the parent and their child dancing. The things that just bring you fun activities, things that don't you can do with others that just bring you that moment of joy. Self-care also helps you live a longer life. And so, you get to boost your longevity by practicing good self-care. It can be a mood booster. It can bring you out of a funk if you take that moment of deep breathing, of reflection, of intentionality, and it can bring you into a better space and improve your mood. And self-care can help if you do this with your family, can strengthen those bonds you have with your family. And again, this is not something you have to do in isolation. It's not a selfish move. It can be a very unifying activity. So when we think about, sort of a mindfulness activity, and you want to take that moment where you think of your hand and the five fingers. Look for five things that you see. Listen for four things that you hear. Think about three things that you can touch. And that could be right in your proximity. It can be the fabric of the chair you're sitting on. It can be the screen in front of you if you're on your computer. And think of two things that you can smell. Is dinner cooking? Did you light a scented candle? And then think of one thing you can taste. Do you still have the taste of that cup of coffee in your mouth? Are you sucking on a hard candy and you've got this wonderful flavor of mint in your mouth? So you can use just your five basic senses to bring you into this mindfulness activity. And all of that just took a minute, but it allows you that time to center yourself and to appreciate what's right around you. So here are some little mini activities that you can explore. All are based on improving your mood and getting you connected to you or your community. Um, and you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint and you can go through these yourselves. But some of these will take some time to practice. And some you may want to do on an everyday basis. Some you want to receive on an everyday basis. I love the idea of get a hug or give a hug, because usually hugging is a mutual activity. So you're embracing someone and they're embracing you back. And so, again, think about things that bring you joy, that help you self-regulate. Declutter 5 items. I would need to be very intentional in doing that because things in my home tend to stack up. But again, there's huge accomplishment in just the act of decluttering. Be thinking about, are you the kind of person who enjoys just being out in the sunshine and, soak in that vitamin D? And again, do it for 5 minutes. These aren't big asks, but they are intentional asks. Read an inspirational quote. Have them up on your refrigerator with magnets and so forth, so that you can just, in a moment, as you're passing by the fridge, take a moment to read one of those inspirational quotes. The idea of drinking a full glass of water doesn't sound appealing to me, but you know the benefits of it. You know how refreshing it can feel. You know how it can cool you off or warm you up, depending on the temperature of that water. And there's just huge benefits of that. Unplug. Think about ways that you can live an evening without your phone, a day without your computer, a vacation where you intentionally unplug. And so be thinking about watching that sunrise or that sunset. Both can either energize you for the day or the day ahead, or relax you with that sunset, that you made it through another day. And thinking about how grateful we are for each and every day. I don't know you, but there's such a wonderful feeling when I get to soak my feet at the end of a busy day. The reprieve that I feel when I've taken a nap. Some of us are nappers and some of us are not. But think about the renewing, excuse me, the renewal you get from taking a nap. So when we think about the art of self-care, it can be any one of these things. And it's everything from giving yourself grace, forgiving yourself for something you forgot to do, forgiving yourself for something that you did do that perhaps was not the most constructive, taking a step back, taking a moment to yourself to reflect on an activity. And I really want to impress upon you the absolute importance of asking for help. If you're a single parent and you're dealing again with that aging parent and child with a disability, don't do it alone. Seek out support groups, seek out a village where you can share ideas and share resources, whether it's with a sibling or a community member, a faith-based group or something. But don't be afraid to ask for help. Spending time alone can be incredibly beneficial. And again, it almost contradicts with asking for help and being part of a village, but there are times where you can just spend time alone, even if it's in the shower. It could be the only alone time you get, but deep breathing in the shower, singing in the shower, thinking about, practical ways to renew when you have those moments where you are alone. And it's not selfish to put yourself first. And again, oxygen mask on you first before others. Setting boundaries and asking for what you need all require some communication skills and being able to ask for the things that you need or to seek out those things that you need. And then if people tend to ask you for a lot of things, be practical and set those boundaries so that you're not feeling stretched in multiple directions. If staying home allows you that time to care for yourself, don't be afraid to say no to others, to be able to say, I'm sorry, I can't do that today. This is special time for me and my kids, or this is special time for me and my partner. This is special time for me. So don't be afraid of saying no. All of this may change your habits, may require you to change some of your habits, particularly if you're one that always takes care of others, that always is the first one to jump in and say, oh, I'll do it, I'll do it. So be thinking about, are there some habits that you need to be very conscious of that either, help you start a new habit or help you break an old habit? And so all of this, habits are things you choose to do. And the changing of a habit or the creation of a new healthy habit are some things you need to be very conscious about. So we'll get a little bit into the new habits. So all things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single tiny decision. So it takes one thought to really get you into a new mindset. And then it takes that intentional implementation to happen over time. And so when you think about a healthy new habit, it just doesn't come with one shot. You can't think, well, I tried it and it didn't work. You've got to repeat and how many of our physicians have said, you've got to have an exercise program. You've got to get to the gym. You've got to lose weight. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Well, it's not going to come easily until you build new habits. And so the same with when you're working with your kids. How many of you have, what do you mean I've got to brush my teeth? Again, I've just brushed them this morning. And so, again, it's instilling those habits over time and stacking them. And so be thinking about intentional ways about how you can implement new activities and create new habits. in self-care because self-care is habit forming. And so if you think about ways that you can change it up a little bit, but always stay in within the mindset of creating new habits. So when we talk about, stacking habits and so forth, it really is, you've got to figure out what are your existing habits? Where do you want to go? What do you want to change? What do you want to add to this routine of self-care? And think about how you might have some anchor habits. If you take a shower every day, if you take a shower every morning or every evening, what can you embed in that habit that can bring about new change in self-care? How can you then stack a habit? Well, if I do this, I can then do that. If I exercise and then take my shower, or if I shower and then do chair yoga, you can stack some of these habits. And so build upon something you're already doing. And remember to start small. Remember to think about it's all about building momentum. All of this isn't going to happen overnight, but it can happen over time. Here's a simple 5-finger breathing exercise that you can do with your children, you can do with your partner. And it's just a matter of literally tracing your fingers up with a breath in, a breath out, a breath in, a breath out, a breath in, a breath out, and so forth. I've done this with children, and I had one little girl turn to her dad and said, "Dad, you could do this too." And he sort of laughed, and I said, "Yeah, you could." And so the two of them began, and they traced each other's fingers up and down. And it really helps a child, particularly children who are anxious, children who have trouble regulating their big emotions and small emotions, to just pause. And you can help by setting the pace, by drawing up and down each finger and up and down. You can do this on any body part. You can do this on their face. You can start at the head and go down to the eyes and go down to the nose and go down to the mouth, and count those breaths. But regulating breathing is one of the best ways to reduce anxiety, to feel more in control of your emotions, and to help you take that little deep breath and relax. So another way to think about this is to reflect on what brings you peace, what brings you that grounding moment. And I'll leave you to think about all of these particular activities that are listed here on this image. And maybe it is just sitting with your dog, sitting with your cat in your lap, and just that artful moment of just stroking that animal who relies on you, that child who relies on you. Thinking about, an act in your garden. Does gardening bring you peace? Does gardening bring you a moment to reflect? Does growing all those healthy vegetables support your self-care? Slowing down your pace of talk, slowing down how you read a story to your children, participating in sports, thinking about, is there an activity, playing tennis, jogging? Is there an activity that you once enjoyed that you don't seem to fit into your life anymore that you want to invite back in? And think about ways that you can do that with your family, to get out for short walks, whether you're pushing a stroller, pushing a wheelchair, or you're in a wheelchair. Be thinking about, are there short jaunts that you can take with your family, connecting with friends, listening to music, journaling, practicing that art of gratitude each day. There's no right or wrong way. It's all individual, and it's almost an invitation to reflect within about what you might find soothing and refreshing and renewing. You can customize this. You can work and make a plan of how you're going to approach your self-care plan. Put it up on the refrigerator. You can Google this and you can come up with all kinds of templates. And then it's a visual reminder of, oh, all right, I'm going to pay attention to this part of my body or this part of my spirit or this part of my heart each and every day. One of the tenets and the pillars we talked about was don't be afraid to ask for support. You are strong. You are strong alone, but you can be stronger together. And so we've included both the programs from Best Buddies, Family Support, and within the Federation, we have our Parent to Parent program, where you can, in both, they're very similar projects, look for someone who's been there and done that. Somebody who has experienced that transition from early intervention to public school special education. Somebody who has had that transplant and their child has had a transplant. You can talk to somebody else who's been there, done that, and know that there's somebody else out there who can help just reflect on the experience they went through that perhaps could be helpful to you in your experience. And so know that self-care is not something you have to do alone. It's not something, you can do it within the context of your family, but you can also do it in the context of connecting with others. And so, don't be afraid to reach out for help. So I mentioned some inspirational quotes that you can print up and put on your refrigerator that can be nice reminders of the importance of healthcare. And so again, you'll have this slide if you choose to. All of this came off the web. You can even Google inspirational quotes and just put them up, make magnets, make a bookmark, put them on your nightside table. And it could be the first thing you read in the morning or the last thing you read in the evening before you shut your eyes. And so just take that moment. And again, that last one I've used several times already. You can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first. You are the very important person. So you need to figure out what resonates for you. And, how do you go about that? And when you think about the pillars that we talked about, be thinking about what might work for you in that physical or emotional space, what might work for you in that social or spiritual space. And then again, think about how you might want to do this with others. I love the little image of the mother and daughter or sisters maybe of helping care for one another in those self-care moments. Using that hand cream, using little beauty tips for one another can just be so renewing and so refreshing. So we've come to the end of sort of these tips for healthcare, and just congratulations even for being open to this learning journey. And being able to sort of sit back and think about what it is you already do to care for yourself, or that you're now going to look with a different lens about how I'm going to see this shower tomorrow morning or tonight a little differently, and as an opportunity to learn and to take care of myself. Be proud of it. Share these tips if you're connected with social media and so forth. Learn from others. Get on different groups where you can gain information as well. And again, create that village and celebrate yourself. Celebrate those moments with your family about how well you're caring for one another. So when we think about this, I just want to pause for a moment and just allow you that time where, again, I invite you to keep yourself centered with your feet on the floor, taking that deep breath in, taking that deep breath out, and thinking about ways that you can just implement some of these simple strategies that may sound difficult initially, but you can think about ways of embedding them into your daily routine so that they just become second nature. And then I want to move into when we think about second nature, I want to talk about nature and the benefits of being outside, in being able to gain that fresh air, to soak in that sunshine or the moonlight and seek out accessible activities here in Massachusetts. And again, these are things you can do with your family and do it in a way that allows you to appreciate the beauty that we have surrounding us outside. And again, there's all kinds of research that talks about the benefits of being in nature and the benefits it has on you emotionally, physically, spiritually, and so forth. So it's not a one size fits all when we think about accessible. And we think about, maybe you need something that's wheelchair accessible. Maybe you need something that's visually accessible. Maybe it's involving public buildings and outside spaces versus private buildings or private spaces. And you want to think too about what your goals are. What do you hope to achieve when you think about looking at accessible spaces? What are the ages of your children? Are you looking at playgrounds? Are you looking at accessible programs? And hopefully you're looking at something that has a universal design, that it's built to accommodate all kinds of needs. There are a lot of resources out there available on the website when you think about ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and there are playground recommendations on what is considered an accessible playground. And so you can Google this, you can look on the, and again, these links will be live with the PDF that you get of these slides following today's presentation. But if you have school-age children or young children and they love to be outside, be thinking about, are there accessible playgrounds that encourage the inclusion of every child, whether they have a physical, a visual impairment, whether they have special health care needs, what environments can I take my child to where they can be totally included and find it very accessible. So there's a great, it's actually a PowerPoint that's on mass.gov, which is the state's website, about all kids have the right to play together. And there is a guide for inclusive playgrounds here in Massachusetts. And so there's some great images and some great locations where you can download this guide and find those places that are very inclusive, that are very accommodating. And again, it allows you that opportunity to be in an accessible space outside. This particular Smile Mass actually has adaptive equipment that you can sign out and you can find out what may work before you make that investment as a family member who may have a physical disability or may need some accommodations when you're outside, being able to participate fully, and whether or not that includes a recumbent accessible bike or access to equipment that allows for that participation, ultimate participation in an activity outside. Be thinking too of signing up for this newsletter. It comes out every month and it has a calendar of all accessible activities here in Massachusetts. And it comes out monthly, but they publish a sort of seasonal calendar, which has all kinds of accessible activities to be enjoying as a family outside. And again, it's all about creating new habits and accessing information and being able to identify activities where you can all, excuse me, all participate as a family. On the mass.gov website too, there's a whole list of accessible beaches here in Massachusetts. And accessible beaches may mean there's a walkway, as it's in the image there, through the sand, so that somebody with mobility concerns or wheelchair, a rollator walker can manage to get down onto the beach. They're also first come, first serve beach wheelchairs, which allow you to move into the water and access water sports for somebody who has a mobility problem. And these are first come, first served. There are many here in Massachusetts, but mass.gov info will give you all the locations for it. So it takes some planning. But again, the benefits of being outside and enjoying activities where everybody has access can really give you a lot of energy for self-care. There are accessible trails here in Massachusetts throughout the region. And this particular website gives you all the regional trails that usually mean they are without stairs. They are wooden trails so that anyone navigating doesn't have to go through the hills and bumps and so forth of a dirt trail or something on a, that if even if it's on a hill trail, it's gradually and accessible for anybody using any mobility devices. And so there's all of that access as well. There are free lifetime access passes to many of our state parks and national parks. And so you can go on this federal website and get an access pass that will allow you to visit some of these destinations throughout the US. But this one's particularly for Massachusetts. That is the end of our presentation, and I really want to thank you and encourage you if you're interested in getting connected with the Federation. We have a QR code on the left to advertise our upcoming workshops, and getting on our mailing list is the QR code on the right. And again, these will be all part of the slides that get sent out. And here's our contact information. We are here to help families get connected to services around healthcare, around education, and so forth. So please visit our website.
Yes, thank you so much, Pat. That was so helpful. I think self-care and even just all of those resources, knowing that even if I don't have a child with mobility issues, knowing that people who may be a little bit more understanding and open-minded are going to those places too is really comforting to know in these public spaces. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was so great. We have time for just a few questions, so I'll get started. The first one that came in here is how can parents navigate spaces that aren't as disability friendly that we must use in the summer? So potentially maybe thinking about like public pools or YMCAs or something like that. Do you have any tips on how we can talk with other kids, adults, staff in that matter?
So it's a really good question. I think it's a matter of scouting things out first. Because you want to go to a space beforehand to make sure that your child's able to access it. When you think about, the it used to be called MDC, but there's a DC, is it DC? No, whatever the commission is on health and recreation here in Massachusetts. And they will publish a list of accessible pools. And so splash pads and so forth are great for kids. You can be in a wheelchair, you can utilize them on your hands and knees and so forth. So splash pads are usually very accessible. Um, Pools are on another hand, you may need a lift to get in and out of the pool. And so make sure that you're checking the oh, I wish I could remember the name of the state agency, but I can't. It's escaping me right now. But take a look at their website for accessible pools. Scout it out first so that you can know that, yes, it's going to work for me and my family, or no, I've got to look elsewhere. If you want it to look, want to change things in your own system, is go to planning committee meetings, go to the agency that oversees the pool, make a recommendation that they put in a lift so that you and your family can enjoy something within your own community. So there's opportunities for advocacy as well, and to stay engaged. There's a lot of envy for those, for lack of a better word, if one community has a wonderful inclusive playground and everybody from another community tends to go there. It's like, oh, we're losing our families. They're all going to this other town. And so be thinking about ways that you can even enlighten your local school committees around, in making playgrounds more accessible and so forth. there are requirements when renovations are done to existing spaces to make them accessible. And so particularly and that's all because of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so stay on top of things when they're doing renovations to the public library, when they're doing renovations to playgrounds and saying, hold on a second, you got to make this accessible. And so, and give them examples to go visit somebody's accessible library and so forth. We all learn from one another, and we don't know what we don't know. And so be a messenger to your community, be a messenger to those in charge.
Thank you so much, Pat. And we had someone write in the DCR, the Department of Conservation and
That's it.
Recreation.
That's it. Thank you so much. I had a little
Um,
bit of a brain freeze there.
that's okay. One other quick question, and then we'll wrap up here. What are some common misconceptions you see about nature play and outdoor time that you wish more parents understood?
I wish more parents just knew the benefit of it. And even if it's just to eat outside, picnics, again, it's seizing the moment to do things that allow you that time to be looking up into the trees, to be feeling the breeze on your face and all of that. And again, it doesn't mean you have to, plan something extravagant. It can be literally, taking a blanket out and eating lunch or something in the backyard, but just seizing those moments to appreciate being outside.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pat, and Karen, too. This was extremely informative and helpful, and I think we can all take something away. I know so many of us are walking away with more tangible things that we can actually put into practice in our day-to-day lives and hopefully ease the transition from school into summer. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We hope to see you at some future Unis Buddies webinars and some Federation for Children with Special Needs events.